Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here sitting with somebody who I have seen almost everywhere from Facebook, Instagram, you name the app. He has the ability to, one, be in front of you because he's run so many amazing ads, but he's actually really good at business. And today we're going to get him to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I got the one and only Tanner on the show today. What's going on, bro?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate the intro.
Hey, listen, man. One thing that I like about you is the fact that I can tell from afar that you know exactly what you're doing. So let's break this down. But before we do, our audience right now, they're scrolling through the show notes. Tanner, I already know they're probably already on your Instagram profile, checking you out. But tell us exactly where are you from and exactly how did you get to the point you are right now where you're a multi-millionaire with an amazing skyline behind you?
Yeah, thanks, man. So I was one of seven kids. I grew up in a very religious household. Mom was stay at home. Dad was a teacher. So kind of humble, I guess, beginnings. I got bullied a lot as a kid because I had two older sisters. And I think, I didn't have any older brothers. So I thought tea parties and dress up were pretty cool. And the school kids did not. And so around the age of 12, I started going to the gym to kind of defend myself and beat these kids up or that was what I thought, right? I'm going to beat these kids up because it wouldn't stop messing with me. And then what happened was after about 3 months of hard work, I started building muscle, and all of a sudden, kids started noticing. I started excelling at sports. People backed off. I had good grades. And I saw it really, translate. And I was like, hey, if I work hard, good things happen. And then I really started going very heavy into sports, specifically football. I played all the way to the Division I level. So from like 12 to 22, I just went all in on football. That's all I focused on. That's all I did. And then I got hurt multiple times. I've had, 4 shoulder surgeries. I've had a bunch of other ones. I've had about a dozen surgeries.
Wow.
And so it was a point where I knew, hey, this isn't going to work out. I'm not going to go to the pros. And I had my mentor convince me to drop out of school as an engineer. And I was doing petroleum engineering. I had a 3.9 GPA. But the reason I dropped out is my goals just did not fit the vehicle, right? And he's like, well, if
Mm.
you want to make the kind of money you're talking about, you got to do something else. So from 22 to 25, I tried building an online fitness company, totally failed, utter failure. Was doing door-to-door sales, was a server, just anything to stay afloat. And then I'd have like maybe $500 left over a month. And then all the extra time I had, I tried to build my business, but I had no idea what I was doing. And then around 25, I almost quit and went back to school when I saw an ad similar to maybe one that people have seen of me. And I clicked on it. It was had about online high ticket fitness company. I gave them $5,000. I only had $2,000. So then I got my first credit card at 25, which is kind of wild to me.
Wow.
Swipe that, pretty much max that out. And then I just started making a ton of cash. It was like high ticket fitness, and I did $1 million that year. The next year I did 10 million, kind of doing that and consulting trainers. Then the next year I built elite CEOs, like you see on my hat, and that was like people outside of fitness as well. And we had 15 million, and then it's just been on and up from there. So most people, I think they see like quote unquote overnight success, but there was a lot of trials before.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you're somebody that, I've been seeing, services online for the last couple of years. You know, what's interesting about what you just said is that you grew up with a chip on your shoulder. And it reminds me so much of this guy when I sat down in Miami. His name was Grant Cardone. He's been on the show. And he kept talking about how he was short and how he had to figure out another way to even be not just necessarily popular, but most importantly, a person that felt good about himself that can make impact, and I can relate so much to that, being a short guy. But your adversity, your chip sounds like, hey, look, these guys are not respecting me. I ain't got any good your mama jokes, no good comebacks, and I'm going to build myself up. But what's unique about you building yourself up, you didn't do it in a selfish way where you built yourself up and forgot about other people, right? You started, creating a lot of these different things that you were selling, whether it was courses, whether it was teaching people how to do what you're doing, but also on the business side. So I want to tap into your business acumen real quick. One of the most common questions we have in Schools Over Now What podcast is we have a lot of new business owners, Tanner, and they're trying to run ads, man. And they don't know if they're going to be spending their money, wasting their money. You're someone that can definitely help this audience right now. What would be your advice for someone who is trying to run ads or thinking about it, but they don't necessarily have all the right things put together?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing I would do is before you ever run ads is make sure that you actually have a process that's working. Ads amplify what's working. and it also amplifies what's not working. So for me, when I started my business, the first thing I did is I was just doing outreach, cold outreach. So think of it like door-to-door sales. It's not efficient per se, but it does work. And when you're broke, that's really the only thing you can do. So on average, if anyone's listening, start by sending 100 messages. You're looking for about 30 responses. You need about 5 replies. Then you need to close 1 or 2. If you're not hitting those ratios, something's off. And it usually means you're just not very good. So the only way to get better is you do more reps, right? It's not less reps. It's more reps always. It's more. Once that's down or you feel confident enough to run ads, if you have very little money, I'd start with what's called a boosted post. So you can go on Instagram, you click one of your posts, hit boost. And then what'll happen is you'll start getting more likes and engagement on that post. And then you can actually DM those individuals, and it's really cheap. And that's usually a great strategy for people trying to go 5K a month, 10K a month. It's very cheap and it's very low risk. Once you're trying to get to higher levels, typically you need to start running messenger campaigns or just straight to page, because you need more volume, right? So boosted posts are not really going to work because you're going to get a block feature. You can only message so many people in an hour. Usually it's like 20-ish. And then so what I do when I did to grow my company is I drive a lot of my leads to messenger, but you can also run straight to page. I think messenger is better for most beginners, because if you can learn how to have a conversation, which you can do organically, then when you run your ads, you're just doing the same process again, right? You're not trying to recreate the wheel by building a perfect webinar or some VSL video that you hope really hits off. So for anyone who's listening, if you don't know how to do ads and you want to learn, you could go to udemy.com. It's super cheap. It's like $100-$200. And then just go through that, and then you'll have a lot better understanding of ads. Then obviously the best teacher will just be experienced, right? You'll be better off. A lot of people, a mistake they make is they'll pay an agency. Let's say they pay the agency $5,000 or $3,000. You're better off just blowing the cash on ads yourself, and you'll see what works and what doesn't work. Because running ads really isn't complex. It's the follow-up processes and the systems that make it work. It's not who's like clicking the buttons.
Ooh, that's a bar. Because so many people right now, you're listening to this, whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening to us, on your regular commute, or you're perhaps taking notes right now. So many of us do that, right? Complete opposite. I've never heard that advice, but I think it's very solid advice. Here's a question, Tanner, I think someone's probably asking right now. They love the strategy you just gave. And guys, this strategy, we're going to actually put it in the show notes, the 100 DM strategy Tanner just mentioned. I think I saw a post on that too, Tanner, by the way. With this particular strategy, what exactly are they saying in these DMs? Is it really them? Is it a VA? Is it a bot? Like, what exactly are they doing? Because I can imagine sending 100 DMs, it can be repetitive, right? But you also want it to lead to something.
Yeah. So, I mean, number one is I've done some posts on this the last few days. Everyone wants, to feel productive and feel like they got this business off the ground, and they think it should be all this fancy shit, and it's not. It's doing the boring stuff over and over and over again. So that's number one. In terms of what's in the inbox, I use actual human beings. So I have actual like either myself or setters who are in there doing it. You can do bots, but they're just not there yet. I think they'll get there with AI, but they're still not there. And you usually have to train it to your methodology. So for me, what we do is in a month, we might handle 200,000 messages, because if we get about 20,000 leads, let's say 10 messages per lead, about 200,000 messages where we actually have human beings, whether it's myself or my team, that I've trained on what to say. And the reason it works is because you're scaling something that's very hard to scale, right? And so anytime you can do something in business that's different than everyone else, that's the number one rule of standing out and staying successful. I think a lot of people, they try to just, they'll run ads to some webinar and they just hope that it magically works. And more times than not, it doesn't. And even in, if they do a follow-up process of emails have like a 15 to 30% open rate anyways. So they're just not doing enough to get people through. And so for me, I always know, hey, if I can have a conversation with someone, I'm so good at sales, I can probably convince them to take action and buy. Versus a lot of people, they're kind of crossing their fingers when they run ads and they're like, please work. And that's not a great way to be. It's like the lottery. I just don't want to live my life that way.
Absolutely, man. And I think having that human connection is absolutely key, right? So our audience right now, they're listening to you, they're getting this strategy, the 100 DMs. I think you mentioned, I think in 20, how many of these can you send in 5 hours? I think there's a number you put on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, 20 per hour is safe. You could get up to 30, but it depends on the block limits on Facebook and Instagram. And keep in mind, these are usually cold DMs, right?
Yep.
So these are people who don't follow you. If they do follow you, or if they've messaged you before, it's going to be a lot higher. But yeah, I'd say like 20 is safe. And then, yeah, a lot of people, they say, oh, it's just too much. I don't know how to do it. You just have to be quick. I mean, I don't know how
Mm.
else to say. If you're being quick and you're efficient, like if I'm on a hashtag, let's say it's like Fit Mom and I'm a fitness coach, you just got to scroll. Like you got to go quickly and you got to
Mm.
have intention about trying to find someone who's going to fit your avatar. And it's like if you do that, sending one message every 3 minutes is not difficult. I mean, it
Not at
should be
all.
way less than that. I just think a lot of people they overthink it and then they're not efficient. So they take a process that should take a couple minutes and they make it take 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden
Mm.
they're like, well, I only sent 5 messages this hour. And I'm like, well, that's because you're slow and you need to be much faster.
100%. Listen, one of the things that I noticed, and it speaks to, right, not only just being fast, is the importance of being mindful and eliminating distractions, right? I saw a post that you recently did about eliminating distractions, and I want you to talk a little bit about why was that so important to put out there, because you even said, you're like, hey, listen, I don't even care if I'm in the gym, I'm only listening to certain things and not other things. Talk about a little bit to our audience why it's important to eliminate distractions and go after those goals.
Well, so where that post came from was I had a client and she was doing $25,000 a month and she was very frustrated, right? And she got on a call. I don't usually get on these calls, but I got on a call with her because she's very frustrated. She's been a long time client and she was crying and saying, hey, I got to take care of my family and I need to get to $100,000 a month and like I'm out of time. And I just said, okay, like break down your schedule. So she breaks down her schedule and she's telling me all these things she's doing that don't drive sales. And I just said,
Mm.
okay, let's back up. What drives sales? Sales calls, right? How do you get sales calls? Messaging, leads, right? And I'm like, okay, so why are you doing anything besides messaging leads and taking sales calls? She's like,
Mm.
well, that's a good point. I'm like, yeah. So we changed her whole schedule, and now she's doing 25,000 a week, and that's $100,000 months, and that literally happened within I'm talking 7 days, all because she just shifted what she's doing. So the
Wow.
funny part is a lot of people they fall in love with the idea of a business, but they don't actually want to do what it takes to build a business. So it doesn't sound sexy to say, look, you're going to sit
That's
down all
good.
day today and you're going to message people for 10 hours and you're going to have a couple sales calls and you're not going to move. And I mean, people just don't want to hear that. They want to hear there's some magic formula or magical coaching program or some secret trick or some pony. And like the longer I've been in business, the more I realize it really is all the same stuff over and over again. And then building a team around you that can do it better than you or as good as you. So you get leverage and then you just rinse and repeat that process. And,
Mm.
obviously part of it's the product as well. Like I would say the billionaires I've spoken to have really good products, right? So that's the next phase of entrepreneurship is like, instead of kind of shilling something that not everyone could get the similar results, right? Which is the hard part with consulting. Sometimes not everyone could get the same result. You sell something where everyone could get the same result, even the lowest IQ person on earth. But yeah, I mean, it's that's why it matters for distraction because people are being told by either watching YouTube videos or they hear something or they see something or some Facebook post and they think that what they're doing isn't working when in reality they just suck at it. And a lot of people don't want to admit they suck, but that's usually the
Mm.
truth.
Oh, this is good. We're getting somewhere with this because we're talking about right now. We were talking about eliminating distractions and exactly how you got to that point. But what I'm finding out by listening to you that there's a lot of mistakes that business owners are making. And a lot of those mistakes is putting their time in the wrong places. Throughout your years, the hundreds of people you've coached, the many businesses that you've helped develop, what do you feel like have been some of those mistakes that entrepreneurs might not see that is right in front of them?
Yeah. So number one is they just aren't very good. And a lot of people think they're a lot better than they are. An easy example that most people can relate to is, the guys who think they get all the girls, right?
Whew.
They think they're good at getting girls, but in reality, it's like, no, like the reason these girls aren't going on dates with you is because, you're saying weird stuff. But that's hard for guys to admit because it hurts their ego.
Mm.
So the reality is that it's business is very similar to, I would say, dating. I always make these dating analogies because if you're not getting the girls you want, then there's something off. Either you're not doing the things they like or you're saying the wrong things. It's the same thing. So a lot of business owners, they just aren't very good at communication. They're not good at messaging. They're not good at sales. And the reality is that you can have a business where you make money that doesn't actually have a good product. Now, I don't think
Mm.
that's ethical, but you can actually have a horrible product and make a ton of money, at least for a short while, because no one actually knows how good your product is till they buy,
Mm.
right? So a lot of the business owners I work with, they think they're a lot better at messaging than they are. They think they're a lot better
Mm-hmm.
at sales than they are, and they're usually blind.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really matter if you don't have it or not. It's about being resourceful. It's about being a grown adult and like making it happen, like doing what you have to do. So my advice, getting to what you said, is not because I'm a business consultant. I could care less. I mean, I literally could care less if anyone buys my stuff. Like, I'm basically retired. So it's just, you need to hire someone to show you what to do. And a lot of people, they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait, not understanding that the longer they wait, the less likely it is they'll be successful, because not being successful can get just as much momentum as being successful. So it's like this rock, right? And so the longer it takes you to get it moving, you're more likely to quit. You're more likely to go back to school. You're more likely to get a job you hate versus actually building that business. So my advice would be, if you don't know what to do, pay for help. If you don't have the money, be resourceful, move home, live in a homeless shelter, literally whatever it takes, because at the end of the day, when you get to where you're trying to go, it's always worth it. And it should be hard, because if you're trying to live an extraordinary life, you're going to have to do difficult things. You cannot have extraordinary outcomes living an ordinary life. And so I think people just need to align their actions with their vision. And so that would have been my advice, because I went through a lot of trial and error those 3 years, and it was super avoidable. In fact, when I started making money, I was more upset than happy, because I was so close the whole time and I didn't know it. And if I just paid someone money a few years earlier, I would have been there sooner. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bar. Guys, if you're listening to this, you're probably so much closer than you can imagine. You're hearing it from Tanner himself. And I know you're probably like, hey, look, how can you learn more from him? How can you find out more from him? Tanner, just give us all your social media platforms and where we can best find you.
Yeah, so if they just go to Instagram at tanner.chidester, I actually have a bunch of free courses on like the messaging strategy. I get asked about this probably every show, numerous times. So I just built out a whole free curriculum. So if anyone wants it, just go to tanner.chidester, message me, school's out, and then we'll just send it over to you and run with it. I mean, at the very least, I'll get you guys up and running.